Kia ora, everyone. Welcome back to our Zealed webinar series. I'm a bit rusty today. It's the first one of the year, but what better way to kick it off than by talking about social? So social continues to grow and grow. TikTok trends, Insta trends, Facebook. It's hard to find someone now these days who doesn't know about the various platforms and things going on in them. But let's take it to the next level here. How can this be utilized for business growth or awareness? Well, today, head of our own marketing at Zealed, Hannah Metz is here to take us through top tools and strategies for social media in 2022. So to start us off, I'm just going to take us through some housekeeping. So how will the webinar run today? So how do you ask a question? There's a little toolbar and it has a little question mark and you can click on that to ask us a question. There's also chat mode. So if you just want to talk directly to me and Hannah, you can use chat mode, but you can also use chat mode to speak to the wider audience. One thing I would like, if everyone could test out our chat so we can make sure that it's working and we can get everything from you, if you could just type now in the chat what industry you're from, and that will just help us make sure that our chat's working great today and that we can get all your questions. Then the next one under that is a request to speak. So there is an option to request to speak. So if you do have a mic available, feel free to click that and you can ask us directly on the webinar. Doesn't get used as much. Normally it's the questions in the chats that do get used. And then what if you miss something? So we keep a copy of all of our webinars and we will send out links so that you're able to access them at any time and be able to look over them and get those extra notes that maybe you missed or even pass them on to others as well. And then also, if you are thinking already that you may need some help in this area of your business, or maybe later on, you can actually get a free online strategy session with one of our digital business strategists. So in this session, they'll go through about your business and they'll talk to you about social in particular, if that's what you're interested in. They are there to help, and we available up on the screen now, so you can click, and if you are wanting to register for that, you can get that booked in now. Or likewise, after the webinar, if you've had a bit of a think about it, you can always reach out to us and we're able to get you booked in too. So now that we've gone over the basics and how the webinar will go today, I would like to get 2022 off for our webinars by welcoming Hannah to take us through all her top tools and strategies for social media.
Awesome. Welcome, everybody. I just put up the offer for the strategy session. So if you have issues viewing that, it should be available, visible on your screen now. Please send us a message if you don't see that on your screen. And if you'd like to book in, then we can just send you the link directly. But it should be visible for you now. Okay. Now to start it off, I just want to briefly cover off what's kind of trending this year, what's new, what to look out for. And yeah, let's jump right into it. So starting off with Instagram, there's a few changes happening that you should be across in terms of the structure of Instagram. So there will be a new way of showcasing the content available, which there will be 3 different feeds available on Instagram. So Instagram is going back to the chronological feed, which wasn't available for a long time. That was like the original sort of Instagram layout, and now they're returning back to having a chronological feed, meaning that anyone you follow, you get in real time when content has been posted. And that's really good news for businesses because of the way it was previously, which was dictated by the algorithm. A lot of times people would miss content, even if they're following somebody, even if they're interested to see your content, they might just not see it because of the way that the news feed was laid out. So that's really good news for you. There will also still be a favorites tab. That's new, a favorites tab, which basically just means people can save you as their favorite and then they get that specific content that they want to see, which again is great news for you as well. It might also be good once these changes are introduced to encourage your audience to save you into their favorites, just to make sure not to miss anything from you. And then there will still be the existing non-chronological feed as well. So that will remain in there as well. So yeah, just keep that in mind with the way that you do things on Instagram. If you are on Instagram, if not, don't worry about it. But just keep that in mind that there will be some structural changes. Additionally, there will still also be the Instagram Reels tab as well that will only show video content. But we'll talk about video content a little bit later on. Okay, so speaking of video, one thing I just wanted to touch on as well is TikTok. Now, you might have heard about TikTok. It's become a lot more popular over the last couple of years. I'm not necessarily saying you need to be on TikTok or your business should be on TikTok, but it is good to be aware that the rise of TikTok has also resulted in vertical format, video format being, massively popular. So that's translated onto other social media platforms as well. So that's why you need to be aware of this change. In regards to TikTok, if you're wondering if you should jump onto that bandwagon or not, you're unsure, you're not really sure how it works, one thing to think about and to consider is your target audience. So what sort of age range is your target audience in? I would say if your target audience is under 30, then it would be potentially good to consider going onto TikTok. But it's not necessarily something that you need to be doing at the moment, but it is important to consider how the rise of TikTok affects the other platforms. So what does that mean? Essentially, there's new features being introduced in a lot of the other social platforms. So for example, Instagram, YouTube, Facebook, where the vertical video format is becoming a lot more popular and is being pushed a lot more by those platforms, meaning that if you go ahead with creating that sort of content, you have a lot higher chances of your content being seen, because those platforms favor the vertical video content. So yeah, keep that in mind with your content strategy, that video format or video content in general is absolutely huge at the moment. It has been for a couple of years, but vertical video format specifically is extremely important at the moment. Now, I want to talk to you about actual strategies and how you can approach your social media content creation and all sorts analytics and all that good stuff. So first and foremost, I think it's important to remind yourself of your target audience and just get really clear on who you want to target, who you want your content to see, and what and how you can help your target audience. So obviously you'll be aware of who your target audience is, but it's also important to remember where your target audience spends time online. So your target audience might not be on Instagram, it might not be on TikTok, it might be on LinkedIn, or it might be on YouTube, or it might be on Facebook. It just depends on where they spend time, that's where you also want to put your effort. So have a look at your analytics, whichever platforms you're on, have a look at the analytics section of that platform. There's also a lot of external websites and tools you can use to have a look at your analytics, but most platforms have an internal analytics page that you can go into. You can learn about your audience, the people that already follow you right now, and find out when they are active, what their behaviors are, and so on and so on. So just as a little reminder, reach is the unique number of people that saw your post, whereas impressions are the number of times your post was seen. So that could have been the same person 5 times or more. And then engagement is the total number of people that engage with your post. There's also an engagement rate. So you can find that out really easily. Just type in engagement rate calculator in Google and it will be able to tell you your engagement rate for different platforms. It's important not to get disheartened by whatever your engagement rate is. A good engagement rate for Instagram, for example, lies anywhere between 3 and 5%. So if you have like a lower, seemingly lower engagement rate, don't get disheartened by that. A like normal engagement rate is anywhere between 3 and 5%. So if you're within that, it's good to obviously try and increase it, but it's not like a bad engagement rate. Okay, so next I want to talk about hashtags. Hashtags are kind of a controversial topic sometimes. Some people say you need them, other people say you don't need them. So I just want to give you a step-by-step guide on how you can put together hashtags that actually work for your business and help you be seen more. So I guess before you even go into researching hashtags or anything like that, it's important to put together a list of words that describes what you do, the type of content you create, any sort of like keywords that are relevant to your industry. And then make a list of like around five words, or it could be more as well, that describe your target audience. So, who are they? What are their goals? What are their pain points? And so on. And then also if your product or service is only in a specific area, for example, that's a good way to also make your hashtags more specific. If you add, an area to the end of your hashtag. So for example, for us, rather than using the hashtag digital marketing, which isn't very specific, we could be using the hashtag digital marketing strategists New Zealand or strategists Auckland, whatever it may be. So when you actually compile your hashtags and think about what hashtags you want to be using, the most important part is to make it as niche down as possible. So you want to stay away from very generic hashtags, like for example, for us, digital marketing. And you want to make it as specific to your target audience and to what you do as possible. So cool. And then when you have done that, you have created the list of different words that describe you and describe your target audience. Go actually onto Instagram. I know that there's other tools as well, and I will talk about one later on as well, that can help you find hashtags. But I find the best way and the easiest way actually to do it is just in Instagram. So you can just look up all of the hashtags that you have thought about that you could potentially be using, and then see how many posts have been shared under each hashtag. You want to stay away from hashtags that have a lot of posts. So for example, above 1 million, just because what happens when you share content under that hashtag, there's so much content being pushed out by that under that hashtag, that the chances of your content being seen are quite low in comparison to if you chose a hashtag that only has, say, maybe 100,000 shares. So keep that in mind. And as a guideline, I would say stay between 5 to maybe 300,000 shares, maybe even less than that. Maybe you want to even go further down to maybe 200 or 150,000. But it's good to stay in that sort of smaller range because it will increase the chances of your content actually being seen. Now, when we talk about hashtags, we also have to talk about different platforms because different rules apply. So on Instagram, hashtags are incredibly important. On other platforms, for example, Facebook or LinkedIn, hashtags aren't quite as important. And on LinkedIn specifically as well, using too many hashtags can kind of look a bit tacky, and that's something that you should stay away from. In saying that, it's still important to do your research and find the hashtags that are appropriate for each platform. On LinkedIn, the niching down aspect is actually the opposite. You should stay away from too specific hashtags, and you should go for the sort of like bigger, more general hashtags on that platform. So yeah, different rules apply for different platforms. Yeah, keep that in mind as well. Now, back to your hashtag strategy. Once you have found a couple of hashtags that you have deemed as fitting to your industry, your product or service, what you should do then is compile different sets of hashtags so that you have different hashtags for different types of content that you create, but also just to be able to switch them out. Social media platforms don't like it when you repeat and reuse the same exact hashtags every single time. So it's good to have a couple of different sets that you can just keep using and switch out for different types of content. So one, for example, if say you do educational content, could be more catered towards that. If you did behind the scenes of your operations or anything like that. It could be catered more towards that. So just keep that in mind, but have the sets ready to go so that when it comes to actually posting your content, you don't have to, before you post it, quickly look up some hashtags, because that's not how it's going to work for you. You need to have a strategy behind and then have them ready to go, so that when it comes around to being posting or scheduling your content, you know which hashtags to use and you have a clear strategy. You can also go to metahashtags.com just to check if any of your hashtags are banned. There are some hashtags that Instagram has banned for various reasons, so make sure you check that before you use a hashtag. And then also I would recommend to just every now and then, maybe every 3 to 4 months, just go through your hashtags again and check if they're still relevant, or if you maybe need to update them. Okay, so I touched on understanding and knowing your audience a little bit earlier today, and checking your analytics on whichever platform you're on obviously is really important. This also will affect the times and also the frequency that you will share content. So understanding when your target audience is online and the most active on different platforms is incredibly important. And that might be different from platform to platform. For Instagram, for example, it might be on the weekends at 8 p.m. And then on LinkedIn, it might be throughout the day, during the week. It can vary depending on which platform you're looking at. So that's important to understand. Have a look at your analytics, see when your audience is online, and then post accordingly. But in saying that, I would also recommend that you see what's working and what isn't working. That applies in general with anything social media, but also when it comes to the time you're posting. So if you see you're always posting at 5 p.m., but your posts aren't really getting that much engagement, then maybe it's time to try out a different time and just test it and see what works, see what doesn't work. And then over time, you will understand and find out when the best posting time for you personally is. Now, when it comes to frequency of posting, I feel like that's a question a lot of people kind of struggle with. They're unsure how often should they post. Is it important to be posting a lot? And in general, I would say it's more important to create high quality content over creating a lot of content. So I know that social media is maybe not your highest priority, and there's so many other things going on. It's very busy, and I understand that. So when it comes to creating content, I think the most important part is that the content that you do create is high quality. And then that might look different for each and every one of you. So you might have the capacity to be posting every day, or you only might be able to post 3 times a week, and that's fine. So just focus on creating content intentionally with your target audience in mind. Make sure it's high value and high quality, and then that's fine. And then over time, you can maybe increase the amount you're posting. So just see what works for you. At the end of the day, high value and high quality and also being consistent is what's most important. Now, as I said, creating content can be overwhelming and maybe seems at the moment like something that's just not really your highest priority, and that's fine. I recommend deciding on a day, maybe once a month or twice every month, where you just sit down and you plan out your content for the coming month. So you could maybe put aside an hour or 2 on one day where you just think about ideas and different types of content you can be creating. Another time you have an hour to set aside where you can actually create the content. And then you have another time where you actually go ahead and schedule in the content. Or you do it all in one day. I mean, that's really up to you, but I would recommend batch planning your content and then scheduling it so that it's done and dusted and you don't have to worry about it anymore. Obviously, you can then go ahead and schedule in other things if necessary, something urgent comes up, or if you have a special promotion or anything like that. But I think generally speaking, for you, it will be a lot easier and more manageable if you batch create content and schedule it in ahead of time. Another really important point is that it's okay to repurpose content. I think a lot of people shy away from repurposing content just because it might seem like not the right thing to do, but I highly recommend doing this, and it will save you a lot of time and effort as well. So say, for example, you have put up a post on your Instagram, your Facebook, your LinkedIn, whatever it may be, sharing tips for your target audience. Now you can take this post and just flesh it out a little bit more and turn it into a blog post. You can also turn this into an email. You can use it for webinar content. You could turn it into a video, upload it on Instagram Reels, upload it on YouTube. You could share it on your stories. There's so many different ways that you can repurpose content. So I highly recommend doing that because it will save you time and it will make it a lot less daunting, this whole process of creating content. Now, just for some inspiration, some different types of content that you could be sharing on social media. Educational content is probably one of the most shared types of content. When we talk about what makes something go viral or what makes something shareable, the answer to that is usually it's educational, it's funny, so it's entertaining, it's inspiring, or it talks about something that is currently happening. So those are usually the types of content that go viral, or content that evokes a certain emotion. So think about that when you create your content, but obviously also think about your target audience and what sort of content they want to be seeing. Then you can also talk about things that are related to special days. So we, for example, just did a post on Valentine's Day. It might not always be applicable to your industry, but it's good to be kind of across what sort of special days are coming up. So you can incorporate that into your strategy. And then obviously you can be talking about your product or your service or any sort of special offers that are coming up as well. Now, I want to give you a little bit more of a specific example. I touched on content buckets earlier, and I just wanted to go into that a little bit more. I'm not sure if you are familiar with the term, but here's an example of thinking outside of the box a little bit when it comes to your content. So as an example, say you are selling baby clothing online. Now, obviously, you will be talking about your products, naturally. You will be talking about special offers, promos, anything that's happening, new products that are coming out. That's one of the buckets. That's only one of your content buckets. The same applies, obviously, if you're offering services. That's one of your buckets. Now, it's time to think outside of the box a little bit. What other topics is your target audience interested in? So for this example, the target audience would be maybe new parents. So what could you be sharing that is interesting to new parents? You could be sharing, tips for new parents, what to look out for when raising children. Now, don't shy away from these topics. If you don't feel qualified to be sharing this sort of content, don't worry, that's fine. You can still be sharing content. You could be sharing a blog post from an external source or a news article or a video that you found helpful. The important part is that you're creating sort of like a hub for your target audience to come to, not only for your product, but just for information that is interesting for them in general. So that could be one of your other buckets. Then another one could be, for example, DIY baby food recipes. Again, you don't need to be coming up with these ideas entirely, but you could be sharing recipes that have been shared in other places. And there's nothing wrong with that as well. And then another one, for example, could be easy at-home workouts for busy parents, or it could even be easy recipes for busy parents, anything like that. And then another one could be funny memes about parenthood or relatable content about parenthood. And you could even take this one step further and ask your target audience to send in their funny parenting stories or any struggles that they're experiencing with parenting, and you could be sharing those. So then you're involving your audience, you're making it interactive. So there are just a few examples of how to branch out a little bit from your product or service, because if you only ever talk about your product or service and every single post that you put up is like promotional, people won't be interested. They will get tired of that. So you need to keep it a little bit more versatile than that. Now let's go back to video content. As I said earlier, video content is incredibly important. But I also understand that it can be a little bit daunting to film video content, and you might not feel comfortable in front of the camera, or whoever would be in charge of doing the video content might feel a little bit uncomfortable doing it. So here are just a few tips with getting started. I think writing out a script is really helpful. You obviously wouldn't be reading it off word by word, but you do want to have a bit of a guideline on what you will be talking about, what your talking points will be. And I also think sticking to shorter videos to begin with is probably a good idea, because then it's not, it doesn't take too much time to film. It doesn't take too much time to edit. Don't worry as well if there's cuts in between. If you didn't get it perfectly all in one go, that's fine. I think the important part is just to get started, just to start somewhere. And so with that as well, you could do like a 30-second video or even 15 seconds video on Instagram Reels. The longest video you can do in general there is 60 seconds, and that's already considered long. So stick to shorter video format, and then every now and then, and if you feel a little bit more comfortable in front of the camera, obviously you could be doing a longer format video. But I recommend starting off small, because you don't want to overwhelm yourself too much. So write out your script. If it takes several takes, that's fine as well. You can edit the video after, and I will talk about some video editing apps in a moment as well. And yeah, just practice makes perfect, really. The more you do it, the more comfortable you will become in front of the camera. Now, I want to give you a few video hooks, some more specific inspiration, I guess, for you. So video hooks are really just like a sentence that you start your video out with to hook in your audience, to reel in your audience, to get them interested. So some of these might not work for your specific industry, but it's just a little bit of inspiration in regards to how to make your video content as interesting as possible. So this could be a variety of things, but for example, you could start it off with "you won't believe," and then something relating to your industry, or "here are 5 tips for your target audience." It's important to start off your video with a hook like that, just to make sure people are instantly interested. In this modern environment that we're in, people's attention spans are incredibly short, so you want to hook them in as soon as you can with the beginning of your video. And then we also need to talk about the end of the video as well. So at the end of the video, you want to make sure to give your audience a clear call to action, something that they should be doing next. So whether that's follow us for more helpful tips, or click on the link in our bio, or go to the special offer that we have at the moment, or send us a message, or leave a comment, whatever it may be sure to have a clear call to action at the end of every video. Now, when it comes to video format, I would also highly recommend having captions to go along with your video, because a lot of people are actually not listening to the sound while being on social media of videos playing. So it's always a good idea to have captions with your video as well. Now, a little tip, little trick to get around that is on Instagram, there's a feature where you can film your stories and have captions come up automatically. It's really easy, really straightforward to use. That way you don't need to get those captions added on afterwards and pay for them potentially. So you could be filming your video just in Instagram and then have the captions come on. And if you need to edit them, you can do that really easily as well. Okay, and then let's talk about tools. Speaking of tools, I don't remember if we mentioned it earlier, but we have a free social media content calendar template that we want to be sharing with you. So make sure you stay on until the end. You will be able to download that template at the very end. Now, I touched on it earlier, but having a clear content strategy and plan set in place also involves having a scheduling platform. So whether that's on Later, Loomly, Plannerly, there's so many different platforms. It really depends on which one works best for you. We use Later here at Zealed, and it's worked great for us in the past, but I would recommend just doing your own research and looking at the ones that speak the most to you, and maybe getting a free trial. All of those platforms have free trials, so just go in, have a look around, see if you like the way everything is laid out. But they essentially all do the same thing, and that is scheduling things and then posting them automatically to your social platform. So then that way you don't have to worry about setting an alarm and making sure everything is posted on time. It will just be posted automatically. And you can even go so far as scheduling in stories on here. You can use these platforms to schedule for Instagram, Pinterest, LinkedIn, all sorts, even Facebook as well. But I'll talk about Facebook in a moment. So yeah, I highly recommend having some sort of a scheduling platform to plan out your content and then have it be uploaded automatically. Now, it's still good to have a notification from these platforms as well when your content goes live, just because you want to be aware of any comments that come in or any inquiries that come in, so that you can get back to people as soon as possible. Now, when it comes to Facebook, I highly recommend not using a scheduling platform, an external scheduling platform for Facebook. Facebook doesn't like you to leave Facebook, so it's good to schedule your content within Facebook. Facebook has its own scheduling page within Facebook, within the business manager, so you can just schedule your content directly on Facebook, which Facebook would like you to do. Now, another really great tool is Linktree. That's just one of them. There's many different ones that do the same thing. This is the one that we're using at Zealed, and it does the job. It is free. There's also a paid version of it, but in my opinion, you don't really need to have the paid version unless you want to really customize the interface of what it looks like. But the free version does the job just fine, so I recommend just going with that. Basically, what this lets you do is it lets you put multiple links into your bio, which is great. Or if it's not in your bio and you just want to share a link as well, again, it gives people the option to go to multiple different places. So what could you be putting into here? You could be putting obviously a link to your website, but then you could also, if you had a recent blog post go up, share the blog post. If you had a recent video you uploaded to YouTube, you could link that as well. Was there an article published about your business? Link it in your Linktree. If you have any special offers, you could be adding that in as well. It just gives your audience more options, and that way you don't need to constantly be changing your link in your bio, depending on different things that you're promoting in your posts. You can always just have it up. Obviously, make sure you check it every now and then to make sure everything's up to date. If there's any offers that have expired, obviously remove them. But this is a really great tool, and it will just make your life a lot easier. Now, we can't talk about tools without talking about Canva. I'm sure a lot of you would be familiar with this platform. If not, please do yourself a favor and sign up for it. There's a free version, again, that does have a lot of the features as well. The paid version has some really good features as well that might be useful to you, but maybe just start out with the free version and have a look through that and see how it works for you. Now, Canva is used for creating all sorts of digital content. So whether that's social posts, story content, your banners for example, Facebook or LinkedIn, it gives you directions on what dimensions you should be using and such. You can even create video content in Canva as well. It's super versatile, and the best thing about it is that there's so many templates that you could be using and getting inspiration from. If you're not really sure what your content should be looking like, have a look through their templates. There's so many of them, and just gives you a bit more of an idea of like how you could be structuring your content and what it could be looking like. And actually, there's a new feature that just recently has been released, which makes creating content even easier. This is within the paid version, but if you want to make your life easier, it's maybe a good idea to try that out. Essentially, you can load all of your brand pack into Canva, so your brand colors, your logo, your fonts that you're using, so then Canva knows what your content looks like from a branding perspective. And then all you have to do is just type out your content, and Canva will automatically place that content, the copy that you've written for your content, into different designs, and change the colors to your brand colors, change the font to your brand fonts, and add your logo and all that good stuff. So this is a really useful tool, which just makes creating content a lot easier. So yeah, I highly recommend Canva. Definitely go and check it out. And then another great tool is Answer the Public. Basically what this does is it tells you what your target audience is searching for on Google. So you enter in keywords relevant to your industry and your target audience, and it shows you exactly what people are typing into Google. What questions are they asking? And that's what you want to know. You want to know what are their pain points, what are their problems, what are they looking for, what are they searching online? And then you can take that information and use it to create content. So if they're typing, how can I, improve my marketing strategy, you will create content that is explaining exactly that. So you can cater to whatever they're looking for. Then just quickly, if you need to make mock-ups for your socials, this is a great place to do so. Mockup Bro just lets you place any sort of designs onto different items. So this is a good place to do that. And then also Graph Tag is a good tool to help with your social media, so your hashtag strategy. It basically just shows you different types of hashtags if you need some inspiration or you're not really sure which hashtags to use. But I also think it's still important to do your own research and think about what I mentioned earlier in regards to hashtag strategy. But this can just be a good tool to go along with that. And then just lastly as well, on photo editing and video editing, I highly recommend Lightroom, the Lightroom app. It's free. There's a paid aspect to it as well, but I don't think you need it. The free version does the job just fine. And also Snapseed, that's also free. So they're two really good apps to use for quick and easy on the go. Just, it doesn't take much time, but you can just edit your photos and make them look a lot more professional. And then when it comes to video editing, so this is what you could be using to edit your content that you are creating for Instagram Reels, for Facebook, for TikTok, for LinkedIn. So whatever it may be, you can edit your video content really quick and easy. You don't need any fancy editing software for that at all. InShot is probably the one I'd recommend the most. It's just really, really easy to use. It's free and just really user-friendly. Videoleap, I believe there is a yearly fee. It's a little bit more advanced. So that one's a really good one to use as well. Okay, so now that we've gone through all of that, it's time to answer your questions. Make sure to leave any questions you have in the Q&A section. And we will also just go through some questions that we get a lot from clients to talk about those as well.
Cool. So like Hannah said, if you've got any questions, feel free to pop them into the chat or the Q&A, and we'll be able to ask them and answer them. So yeah, I guess starting off with just a couple, like you said, that we already sort of get asked quite a lot. And I think this one's very important because not everyone has the time to take photos, not everyone has the time to take videos. So what are your thoughts on using stock photos and videos?
I don't think, I think it can be done in a way that looks good. I think it's important to stay away from stock photos that are obviously stock photos and that just look really unnatural, staged, or not on brand with your personal brand. It's also important to keep in mind your target audience, so make sure any stock photos you use are in line with that as well. But I do think there are different providers of stock photos that have stock photos that look really natural, and you wouldn't necessarily be able to tell that they are stock photos. A really good one that is free is Unsplash. You don't have to pay for those, so that's a good place to go. But again, I think just ask yourself, is this in line with my brand? Would anyone that doesn't know that this is a stock photo be able to pick it out from my other content as a stock photo? If that's the case, then maybe stay away from that particular photo. But I think there's nothing wrong with it, and I think it's a great tool as well. Just make your life a little bit easier again, because it's sort of another thing you need to do is taking photos and creating content. So I think it can be done in a way that works.
Great. And I've just posted to Unsplash in there, but also there's also True Stock, which I think got released end of last year, which actually is a New Zealand-based stock photography website. So I'll post a link to that as well, because that is more New Zealand-based. So, not as, I guess, Americanized as probably what some others are. So posted a link to that. So we have a question from Graham. So how do you know what platform is the best for your products? E.g., I guess he's saying technical products is maybe the area he's in.
Could you perhaps just let us know a little bit more about what your products are exactly, just so we can get a little bit of a better idea? But again, when it comes to choosing a platform, and I didn't mention this earlier, but I think it's important not to overdo it either. I think choose maybe up to 3. 2 is fine. 1 is totally fine as well. Just whatever your schedule allows, and then do those right. Don't be on 5 platforms and do a little bit there, a little bit there. Be on 1 or 2 or 3 platforms, but then do it full commitment and do it right. So that's one thing. And then when it comes to which platforms you should be on for your specific industry, business, your products, your services, again, ask yourself, who is my target audience? How old are they? Where are they? Which platforms do they hang out on? Where do they spend their time when they're online? Are they on Facebook? Are they on LinkedIn? So I think that's what you need to ask yourself first before you even decide which platforms you should be on or shouldn't be on, is where does your target audience spend their most time online? Where do they hang out? And then once you have an answer to that, I think it'll be easy for you to figure out which platform is best for you specifically.
Definitely. And something that I sort of like about Facebook when I'm talking to people is that generally you can share also on Instagram, so, and vice versa. So generally, if you're doing that platform, you're actually doing 2. So that's always a good way to look at it too. But I think definitely agree with you about the audience side of things. Graham did just say he's selling old school coaxial cables, rugged computers, antennas, etc. So quite into, I guess, the more the old school, probably harder to find products. I think for me, I think definitely looking at the audience, like who's most likely purchasing off you, and then working out based on that where they are platform wise, because in some of those cases for those items, people, even though socials, what we're talking about, sometimes people like that, it is looking at your marketplaces like your eBays and your TradeMes may actually be a better platform to put just general efforts in. But anything else on that, Hannah, at all?
Yeah, I agree. I think Facebook would be a good one for that for sure, especially because there might even be communities and groups of people that are interested in that sort of in those sort of products. So if you can go in there and maybe share some valuable tips or any other content that isn't necessarily directly promoting your product, because that's most often not allowed in groups, but it could be a good place to find people who are interested in your products.
Awesome. So I think another thing when it comes to social, there's so many things, like, do I want people commenting? Do I want them liking? Like there's a lot you're trying to get someone to interact with you with. So, what should someone who's looking to use social focus on? Is it gaining the followers? Is it getting likes on posts? Where really should that attention go?
So I think it's really easy to get caught up in your follower count and also your like count as well, because traditionally in the earlier days of social media, that was what it was all about. People were buying fake followers even to get their follower count up, but I think now this has shifted actually quite a bit, and the most important metrics to now keep an eye on are actually not likes or followers anymore. It's engagement. So it's shares of your posts. Are people sharing your content? Because that means that they think it's interesting, it's valuable, they want to pass it on to their friends and family or co-workers or whoever it may be. And so shares are actually a really important metric nowadays to keep an eye on. And I touched on that earlier with the sort of types of contents that you can create. So is it informative? Is it entertaining? Is it funny? Or is it maybe based on something that's happening in the world right now? People share for different reasons, but yeah, the types of content that is shareable usually falls into those categories. Now, another one to look at as well is if people have saved your post. If they have saved your post, that means that they found it so valuable that they wanted to save it so that they could come back to it later. So those two, I think, are really, really important. And obviously also reactions. So on Facebook, for example, there's multiple different ways to react to a post. So people engaging with your content, commenting, those sort of things are the most important, and that should be your focus on social media in general, is creating engaging content, but also actually engaging with your target audience. So an example I gave earlier with the baby clothing was to reach out to your audience and ask for stories that they wanted to share, and building a sense of community is probably the most important thing on social media. People want to feel that they belong, they want to feel like they're part of a community, they want to feel heard. So that is something I think is more important than how many followers you have. Because if you have 500 followers that are extremely engaged with you and extremely invested in your story, in your products, in your business, that's worth so much more than if you have 10,000 followers that don't interact with you, don't engage with you, and don't even really, care about your content that much.
Awesome. No, I agree. I mean, I won't go too much into it, but that's why look after your customers that you already have is good to sometimes focus on, because you've already done the hard work to get them. So keep them engaged is actually the easy side of things. So
Yeah.
definitely agree. Because you did touch on community, you did start talking about that. I think one thing I know when I've talked to a lot of business owners or people who are starting to go into social, they get a bit nervous because they know that social people feel more like that they can say what they want, and so people do come across, I guess, negative comments. Do you have any tips on how to respond or deal with some negativity that can happen? I'm not going to say it definitely does for everyone, but some people probably feel a bit hesitant by that.
Absolutely. I mean, that's sort of the dark side of social media, isn't it? Is there is a lot of negativity, and it can be something that unfortunately you will have to deal with at one point. So my advice for that would be respond quickly. Don't wait too long. Respond quickly. If it's your fault for whatever reason, they are upset about something and it happens to be that's actually your mistake, then apologize. If possible, take the conversation offline as soon as possible. So send them a message just so that there won't be a whole conversation between you and this person in the comments for everybody to see. So if you can, as soon as possible, take it offline. Don't get defensive, and in general, try to be the bigger person, especially if it's in the public comments, but in general as well. But I think it's also important not to feed the internet trolls and to go too much down into rabbit holes. If a comment is simply just disrespectful or offensive, it is also okay to either delete the comment or hide the comment. There's a feature on Facebook where you can hide the comment, which means the person who left the comment will still be able to see it, but nobody else will be able to see it. So I think it is okay in instances that it's actually just really offensive and really rude to do that as well.
Yeah, no, I know that. I've done it a few times because you've just had people that come on and they're just swearing, and I'm sort of like, well, there's nothing to engage with. So there are, yeah, definitely scenarios, but like you said, don't default to that. I think that's very important. So just going back to what we were just talking about with followers and interactions and items like that. Nicole's just asked, how do I get my customers to follow on social?
Okay, so let's talk about people that are already your customers and you want to kind of bring them over to social as well. So a great way to do that is incorporating your social icons into your emails. So when you send out emails, you have the links to your social pages on there, but you could even take it a step further and have a little section on your in your email with your latest post that you shared. Maybe it was tips on a specific topic. Just to get people to go over to your social pages and give you a follow on there. Or if you are doing webinars, you could also encourage people on there to follow you on social media. It really depends what sort of communications you have with your audience. Obviously, have links on your website as well. You could have them on the contact page, but you could also have them in other places as well. So just making sure you kind of direct people towards social media when you have the chance in your other communications that you do as well.
Definitely. I just have another example. So like my the person I get my brows done with, she was offering, if you like and follow her on social, you got $10 off your next visit. So if you do sort of your e-commerce or a service where people are doing that and you could offer something like that, I think that can be another way to do it. And then also just asking for reviews on social, and that's getting them there, and then generally they'll probably like but yeah, I guess some of it does come down to your product, right, or what your service is, and how you can engage with them that way. But I do know offers can work.
Cool. That's a very good incentive.
Yeah, I think it's just having it aware too. Like there's some websites I go on and they don't have their Facebook, so then I'm having to go find it, and that makes it a lot harder. Whereas actually making sure it's just everywhere for people to see and easily click on is really helpful too. So we will be wrapping up shortly, just so everyone's aware. But I do have one last question. So you sort of touched on vertical videos quite early on, and so that there's obviously quite a bit to understand around image dimensions and sort of the videos. So are they important for each of the different platforms, or can you just use the same format everywhere? Like, can I take a photo that I've put up on Facebook and just instantly use it, in LinkedIn or some other social platform?
So I definitely think it's important to be aware of different dimensions for different platforms, and even within this one platform, there might be different dimensions for different types of content. I think it's incredibly important to pay attention to that, and it's really easy. Just Google dimensions for Instagram content, and you'll have all of the different types of content that you could be sharing on Instagram, all in one graphic. There's some really helpful content out there. If you're on Canva as well, it tells you what the dimensions are for different types of content. But I do think it's important to keep track of that. And then also in Canva, if you're creating your content in there, it actually has a really helpful feature that's in the paid version, but it's a lifesaver again, where you can really easily resize your designs. So say you made a post to post on your Instagram feed. Now you want to also share that on stories. You can easily resize that to the right size, and it will just be the same post, but in a different dimension. So that's a feature that's really helpful and really quick and easy to use.
Fantastic. Well, I'll just do one last check quickly to make sure that there's no more questions anywhere. But if anyone does have questions at any time, or maybe you're rewatching this, feel free to email us with your questions. We're happy to get back in touch. The more information and the more advice we can be giving to people just to help them get digital and be, supporting their business through a growth phase or through maybe a retention phase of customers, just feel free to reach out. And we can, certainly answer your questions. So, I can't see anything else coming through. So I'll just, is that sharing? I'm not, No, it's not sharing again.
There you go.
There we go. Thank you. So just wrapping up for today, it's been awesome to have you here, Hannah. I've actually learnt lots myself. Why you were taking us through the tools. I actually downloaded a couple on my phone, so I'm ready to use them. So thanks so much for sharing all of those. I definitely think that's awesome, and I'm sure everyone's learnt something today. But also, just for all of you, please stay on, and we will be sharing our offer, so you can download our free social media planner template to help you out with just sort of organizing your year and your months and getting yourself started on social media, because quite often it's easy once you're doing it. It's just taking those first few steps to get it going. So when you do have it, you can just take a copy of it. So we're sharing just our main one, and you can take a copy of it and then do what you want. So make sure that you stay on to get that offer. And then just to let you all know, our next webinar in 2 weeks' time, so we are doing them every 2 weeks again for this year, is with me. So I'm going to be taking you through how to make your brand authentic online in 2022. So it actually piggybacks off of this webinar very well, because a lot of it is around the videos and the content and how to do that. So now that you know sort of what you need to be looking for and tools to use, I'm sort of delving into that whole recognition around how to make those authentic connections with your brand and your customers. So that's what we're going to be covering off. So I do hope all of you will take time to join us in 2 weeks' time, March 2nd at 10 a.m. as usual. That's when they all are. And then also, if you do want to rewatch this, or you want to watch one of our ones from last year, we keep a full library of all our webinars. So you can go to zeal.com and /webinar library, or follow the links there, and be able to rewatch any parts of our videos and take the notes that maybe you missed the first time. So that is all from us today. Thanks a lot for joining us. We really appreciate it. If you do have any topics as well, or areas you would like us to cover off in a webinar, again, please send them through. We would love to be making sure that we're providing the content and the answers that all of you want. But for now, thanks again, and catch you in 2 weeks' time.
Bye.
Bye.